I am just a busy season.
I can understand that for sure.
I saw you walking down Howard Street with your new grandchild.
It's not mine, but my son's. Yeah, pretty exciting.
I was gonna beep, but I was afraid I'd wake up a sleeping baby.
We are live and all set to go.
Excellent. Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to this meeting of the Northborough Open Space Committee. The Open Space Committee, this meeting is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law June 16, 2021. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members will be permitted. In order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19 virus, the town of Northborough has been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. All members of the Northborough Open Space Committee are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows the Open Space Committee to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded and the public can follow along with the discussions and deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. So thank you and welcome, members. We've got, well, I'll do a quick roll call. Let me know that you're here. Scott Rogers.
Here.
Ashley Davies.
Here.
Paul Tagliaferra.
Here.
Michelle Gillespie.
Here,
And me, I'm John Campbell. We have a quorum of 5. And again, I thank you for coming. The meeting will be pretty brief. I'm going to flip the agenda just a bit and talk about our minutes from the last meeting, which essentially is the introduction to this meeting. At our last meeting, we discussed what CPA applications were going to be considered by the Community Preservation Committee at their open hearings, the last of which was February 10. And during our meeting, as our minutes show, we had a consensus among us that our priorities were the ADA accessible trail at the Senior Center project, and the design study for that, and the project for the design study of the Assabet River Bridge pedestrian access crossing, and that the request for more conservation fund money was our third priority. We discussed how the Community Preservation Committee was going to be challenged by funds because of a large amount of projects before it, the largest of which was a major senior housing project that was going to consume approximately $800,000 of the available CPA funds. And it was discussed and members contributed, including Michelle, from the planning board's perspective, that this project, the housing project, I mean, was a major priority of the master plan, and that there would be a lot of community support for it. And I said that I would communicate the board's consensus to the CPC, which I am on, and I chair also, and I did. So having said that, did anyone see any other issues with the minutes? And if not, a motion I will entertain to approve.
Yes, so moved.
Thank you, Scott. Any comments? Thank you for the second. That was, who seconded there?
I did, Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle. Any comment? If not, we'll have a roll call vote to approve the minutes. Scott?
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes,
And me. And so getting back to that, the CPC did meet and deliberate, and there was kind of a movement in that committee to see if we could find a way to approve every major project, every project application that came before us And in the end of the day, the way to make that happen was in fact to minimize or eliminate the application for transfer of money to the conservation fund. It was noted that the conservation fund currently is at 761,000. So we do have resources, and we've been successful adding to it and using that tool for land acquisition. And so CPC members felt like if we could achieve the other projects and still keep some reserve in CPA, that we'd be helping all causes. It was hard to argue with that momentum. And so that's kind of the path we went. And as a result, we were able to vote in the affirmative and unanimously, by the way, on every application with the exception of that one. So the 88 Trails project was approved. I really feel that will be very well accepted at town meeting. It already has some enthusiasm among the community that visits the senior center, and is not too expensive as far as design studies go. And I also thought there was strong support for the Aqueduct Bridge project, although there was discussion and a little bit of resistance on the cost. I think that Brian did a good job on the second round of presenting what that was about, how important it was, and how it did also address town goals in the master plan. So in the end, that got good support as well. I think we'll need to reiterate those details, pictures of the potential of the bridge, pictures of what the way the bridge used to look, and, stir all those historic bones at town meeting and get everybody on board again.
I want to see those.
Any questions by anyone or input regarding the CPA stuff? Well, hearing nothing, we're in good shape then. I think town meeting will come off on April 25 as planned. I presented to the Board of Selectmen on behalf of the CPC. I went through the description of the articles. I heard no objections and good support as always from the BOS. The only warrant article in CPA that is more complicated, and I think the draft is being revised a little bit, is the senior housing project in terms of where all the funds are going to be coming from. There is one that relates to us that I should mention. There was a CPA application to enhance the fencing, add new fencing around the South Street side of the Assabet Park project, because the park project from 2 years ago is out of budget to fund more fencing. The application was approved by the CPA, but as it turns out, the town is going to commit ARPA funds to that fencing instead. And so the CPA application will be dropped. And that money will just be not used. So it will be in the CPA reserve.
That's interesting, John. I've heard from a couple of folks, and I know Julianne said people called her to ask that the fencing around Assabet Park be improved, like, you know, instead of just using chain link fence, use another. And Scott replied, and I was on an email that Amy sent to Scott Charpentier today to ask him about that. And he replied and said, well, we don't have any additional money. Which is,
I saw it.
yeah.
Amy,
Oh, right. You were on that email. That's right. Okay.
yeah, Amy reached out to me and kind of wanted to broach it. And I said, look, you got to start with Scott and Ally.
Yeah.
I know that they're, I think that they're coming from a position of being conservative. They were, you know, unsure of asking for more money in the first place when a $500,000 project was approved previously. But everyone understands the way these things work, and inflation has been bad, you know, particularly in construction.
Mhm.
But if there's a way to enhance it and get more better fencing, that's fine. I think his reply related to that there's fencing already included on the Gale Street side, maybe. And since that's either already being done, he wanted it to match. Maybe it's short-sighted in the world of trying to look ahead to downtown enhancement. So maybe we shouldn't rule out that more ARPA money would be available, but that would be a campaign we'd have to generate through Scott and John.
Well, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to, well, what I guess what I didn't realize was that it was a CPA application that has been dropped and that money is not allocated elsewhere. So it kind of seems strange not to use that to enhance the fencing rather than go for more ARPA funding.
It's valid to ask, why can't 40,000 be available?
Yeah,
And I don't know that
Yeah.
that's out of the question.
yeah. I mean,
But
if they've already ordered all the materials, then that's another story.
I doubt that, because the application presentation was that there was no funding to do it. So they couldn't get that fencing and hadn't gone forward with it. And I don't think they'd be projecting spending the money thinking they were going to get it. So
Right.
I just learned that today from John Kader. He wrote me about the status of the application. So
Okay.
In
I don't
these
mind taking another turn at it to see, what if we kept the CPA application, because it was approved and budgeted, if you will, in what we had for CPA
Yeah.
money. And then, are we being short-sighted and enhancing that a little bit? So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's just such a visible park.
Yeah.
And I didn't really think about it until these folks brought it up, but it just makes sense.
I think it
To
needs to
try to make
be
it, this is our opportunity to make it look nice, right?
yeah, I know it. And I'm all for it. I think it has to be barrier type fencing as opposed to, let's say, the low fence at the town common,
Right, yes, definitely.
So I think that's the intent.
Yeah.
For safety of children, I assume.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
I
any of
also
the
think-
court,
If I just comment that, I think the fencing that's there now, for me, I don't think it, looks inappropriate. I think you want fencing that you could at least see through into where the park is. So
Yeah.
I don't know what their ideas of designs are as far as fencing that's more lattice or wood or private. I think you probably have pushback from there from public safety that you can't actually see what's going on inside of a park. So I didn't have an issue with the style of the fence that was up. I see that all over the place, but
I can
So-
show you the example they sent and it actually would work it would serve the same purpose. Amy sent in that same email examples. I'll just show you quickly, just so you can see just what people had suggested.
I think at the moment it's black chain link, which kind of isn't visible when you look, but
Can you see that?
yeah.
Okay, so that's the fencing that I think people are proposing as opposed to the chain link. It serves the same purpose. You can't get through it. It's safe. You can see through it. But
Hey,
I don't know
have-
the cost differential.
I have used that fencing actually on the downtown revitalization project in Millbury.
Mm,
I will tell you that there is quite a cost differential between
Okay.
this style of fencing and the black chain link fencing. It's very
Yeah.
expensive.
You think
okay.
it's double or more than double?
Well, I had an area of about 200 linear feet, and that fencing was $26,000. It probably wasn't even 200 linear feet. It
Wow.
was maybe more in the neighborhood of about 125 feet.
Yeah, it's a lot. That's a lot. I don't know what they have budgeted for the chain link right now. So, but that's a lot for the 200.
Well, tell you what, I won't let it drop. I'll reply to John's email to me and ask, is it too much to ask to think about the possibility? But I imagine
Gonna
it
be
would
too-
have to go back to the Board of Selectmen, who approve what he's telling me, basically, to replace the CPA money. But the fact that we had the CPA money approved, then it's logical to ask, why couldn't we use both sources? I mean,
Yeah, if both sources would cover it, sounds like they might not. That might be the reasoning.
not
But
sure.
if they could, that'd be great, but
Another option for consideration is that there's so much delay in building products now, including fencing, that if you could see it delayed out by a long extended period of time, you might find frustration from the public that there isn't a fence up there or the existing fence. I mean, you don't want to sort of have an unintended consequence where you're trying to improve the fence and then you have no fence and then you can't use the park, and you get into all these things when you could have had an available type of fence that I don't think most people would notice aesthetically, that it doesn't, I don't find it that displeasing, but
no,
That's what you-
but it does sound like they don't have anything lined up at the moment. But
I think it
don't
was
know.
just intended to be consistent with the other fencing. And to Michelle's point, you might be right that I think Scott assumes he can get it accomplished,
Okay.
assuming town meeting approval, at that time, assuming town meeting approval after July 1, and so then the park is all done this summer. Whereas if it's different fencing, I wonder if he has to go back and get the design all reapproved, or, it just,
Yeah, and that was part of the impetus of using the ARPA funding, is that it could be allocated right away. And so the
Not have to
material
wait for
orders and all that would fit better into the construction schedule. So even if we brought back the CPC money back, that chunk of money would be delayed until town meeting, and I don't even know how long after town meeting that it takes to appropriate. So the schedule was a big factor as well.
Yeah,
that's an important point.
But
Yeah.
but if the correspondence today, from Public Works, indicated or replying back and seeing if there is any flexibility, that if both funding sources were used, if it gave a possibility of a change, it's worth asking the question. But the way I understood it is that by the meeting the construction schedule is what brought that money forward for using ARPA as a funding source.
Good point. I hadn't thought of that, I think it lets Scott do whatever he wants now, right through to, or let's say in the very short term, as opposed to waiting for fiscal 23, right?
Yeah, because basically, the current construction is just, waiting for good weather, right, to finish things up. And so that allows them to order the materials and continue to fold into the existing contract for getting the construction done.
Well, fair enough. Maybe not our biggest battle, but I might reach out to Scott to see what he says. But I guess it opens up a can of worms, because then it's now the CPC it's really not the same fencing. It's improved fencing, and do they need to talk about it? And it's a little bit of a vicious circle,
yeah, it's a little late to the table here.
maybe.
And another way of looking at it is much like what Scott had just said, which is, the whole goal is to complete this project and get it up and running for the summer. And so you don't want to put any things in the way of delaying that, because there is a lot of public output that is saying, when is it going to be finished? So that's the goal. And then maybe as far as the master implementation plan goes, maybe it's a part of the long range plan down the line to upgrade that fencing. So that could be something on there, within the next 5 years or whatever, we look to upgrading it to this level.
Although as a parent of 3 young children who use that playground in the summertime, it is way too hot to be used. And now that there are no trees, it's going to be a tricky one in the summertime. It's probably going to be more well used in the fall. But yes, I agree. It's been a long time waiting for it to be open again.
Yeah, I hope they'll replace some shade. I mean, wasn't that supposed to be part of it? Kind of a pavilion?
I don't know. I haven't looked at any of the design plans or followed it really at all, except
Don't forget the
for
original
driving
plan.
by.
I'm sure Ally is aware of that potential issue.
Yes, I would imagine, yeah.
Although the new surface ought to be, I don't think it will gather heat, you know?
No. It's more the slides, and just the heat.
All right. It wouldn't be
get
the same if your butt
comfortable.
wasn't hot going down the slide, right? Okay, well, any other points, questions, or things about the CPA articles that I can help with? If not, we'll move on. So I had brought up at the last meeting that I thought a vision for our committee for the coming year, maybe even coming couple of years, and how we might set our agenda and judge, what our next priorities would be to align with the master plan, since master plan implementation is going on, and Ashley is our chair, doing a good job, by the way. And I am on the committee too, and so I'm looking to generate thought. I can't tell you that I did a lot of more homework myself, but I'm looking to generate ideas, or for which of those master plan goals, can we help with in some way, whether it's just continuing our mission of always looking out for new opportunities for land, which of course we'll do. But I wondered if anybody had any input there, and things that we could put on our radar for agenda items and programs. I'm probably going to lean on Ashley a bit for that when she comes back.
I'm here. I just didn't want to be distracting. I mean, for me, the big one, and I know that there are a few priorities in line ahead of it, that's it's a big cost and the town has other things to work on first, but the Aqueduct Trail, I think, I feel like that's where we can contribute most to the master plan. Obviously, there's like protecting conservation land is still in the master plan as well, but I feel like the pedestrian access and the connectivity for bikes and people are a big one in terms of priorities for the master plan. And I feel like that's where we can really contribute in a bigger way.
So since you brought that up, let me ask you, not the big picture connectivity of the, potential of joining with other communities, which I know is a passion of yours, but right in town, for instance, you can't walk the aqueduct from the south to the bridge without going under Route 20, where it's really, you got to crawl, and you can do it. I've never actually done that. Certainly some people do, but what about a vision of how do we create passage there across Route 20? Does it have to be a bridge over the top, which obviously is expensive, but is there a way to create more headspace underneath there that we haven't explored? Has anybody ever explored that you know about?
I don't. I'm trying to think. There have been projects to create better linkages for wildlife and larger linkages under like Route 2 and stuff. That there were wildlife passages created. I need you to write them in. But I don't know about pedestrian, so I'd have to research that. But today in that workshop that Lori and I were at, they were saying, if you're a town that is trying to work on these multi-use trails, you should really pick away at the easy pieces first, and then come to us once you have these big crossing projects, and then apply for TIP funding. Then use these other grants like shared spaces and the Mass Trails grant for the easy stuff. And obviously, we're tackling the Aqueduct Bridge first, which is one of our biggest pieces, and that bit under Route 20 would really be key if we really wanted it all to work. So those are kind of big. And then near the high school, we would need some work to make it all safe. So I don't know. They suggested that, but at the same time, if we don't get these big crossings worked out, then it doesn't make sense to invest in a better surface for the Aqueduct Trail. So I agree. We should probably, that might be the next thing to think about. And it would, obviously, we would want the Trails Committee to be a major part of that work, like not just us. But I think we could look at if there's anywhere where we would need easements or if there were any land purchases that could help it make sense. But I think really it's the aqueduct all the way. So I think it's really just those crossings.
Yeah, I think the road crossings are probably the biggest impediment to full use of the aqueduct.
Yeah. So,
And
I
I
mean,
just-
yeah, and I can't think of any other projects that we could like be proactive with other than just continuing to reach out to landowners and,
Well, you just kind of sparked it in my head, which is, so I brought up this one crossing, how do we cross Route 20, go under Route 20 and make that trail cohesive? And if we're talking in the master plan committee about downtown vision, downtown enhancement, and that's the hot topic right now, and where the money's going to be spent on consultant in progress. We make that part of our vision. And then if you think about any other trails connectivity that has to cross a road, that sort of connects the beautiful trails we have. I haven't studied trails map to see where that might be, but if we were to collaborate with Trails Committee and think about, what's the next thing that could use trails money, and, setting up next fall's CPA applications as an example. And, what is Trails Committee thinking? So maybe we consider a joint meeting, or that members of us attend the Trails Committee, which I do from time to time. It's always fun. They're a very energetic group, and they probably already have some ideas on what they want to do next fall, what they want to go after as a CPA project. And so I'm sort of in my head, I wanted to drive use of CPA with the master plan, and specifically the open space and recreational enhancement, where I just see it as a tool where one of the few ways we can do big things.
John, do you still have that extract of the master plan where you've highlighted the open space items?
I do.
And so maybe to help with our next meeting, and maybe as homework, I know I need to reread that and have that thought against those goals. What are some potential work that we could do?
Yeah, no problem. I had sent it out, and I'll just do it again.
I was struggling to find it here. I was searching and I was coming up short.
No problem. We got a lot of other agendas
Actually,
for you.
Do you envision something like these road crossings, whether it's Bartlett or Barefoot, to be like just simple crosswalks and stuff, or does it have to be something more complicated than that? Right. So if you think about like the Bartlett where the high school is, right? I mean, we could just put a crosswalk in with flashing lights or something as like a simple thing. We don't necessarily need to like dig a tunnel or put a bridge in there.
For
Right.
sure
I
there,
think-
but Route
yeah.
20, I mean, you got to do something major above or below, I think, right?
Yeah, I would hope that Route 20 could be just making it a little deeper so that you can actually stand up in that passageway. But I don't know what's below, how close it is to the aqueduct or what. But in terms of Bartlett, I was referencing that because I think there's a chunk there that passes through 301 Bartlett that is natural heritage. And so getting approval to actually open up the trail there, I don't think that's been done yet. I'm not sure. There was some issue with, or resurfacing would be a really complicated ask, even though the 4M permit was approved for the driveway over it. Apparently it would be like a big deal to resurface the chunk that runs along 301 Bartlett or through it.
Maybe if
So-
we just start with, just identify Because I can't think of the crossings to the north, but look at each of the crossings and prioritize them, or or at least categorize them as the complexity. I think Bartlett as a crossing would be relatively easy, but Route 20 is a tough one, right? And
Yeah.
then I can't picture in my mind the Barefoot Road and up along there. So I can't remember what crossings are. Even
Yeah, because
even
it crosses
Maples
over
would be-
Rice.
Yeah,
It
that's a
crosses
tough
over
area
like Rice
because,
and then runs across
Yeah.
through Edmund Hill, and then goes up by Coburn to Barefoot, and then goes under
Right.
290.
so that's interesting because that's where I just cross country skied, and it ends at Coburn, and then you don't even really know where you're going unless you've been up there. And eventually
Right.
you've got to get down by the senior center, and then you've got to cross Barefoot and go into the driveway of the business that's there. And then just off the driveway, you see the trail again. It goes underneath the overpass of 290, right?
There's like a big green gate once you cross
Yeah.
Barefoot, and then you keep walking. Yeah. Then you go under 290. And then I think it keeps going to like Newton Street or something.
So that's a tough one. But hey, in the world of this kind of stuff, is there a way to create trail and or sidewalk that is more of a connection than we have now? And I have no idea what the land use availability would be, but
But there
that's in
could
the,
be some opportunities to incrementally improve those crossings and just keep chipping away at it year by year.
Yeah, like that Coburn and Rice Ave area, well, that might be a good place for an easement.
yes. So
With
that's
that,
kind of
I
in
mean,
the-
that business, I can't imagine that they have any use for that little chunk of land right on Rice. Or Coburn is that?
These are the kind of things I'm thinking about, that
Yeah,
add to the projects we're already working on,
mhm, mhm.
and I guess the other big ticket things are that we're not already working on. For instance, obviously the aqueduct project, we're trying to move forward. The dog park study, we're trying to move forward. That was approved by CPA. Things like this we know about, but are there other land parcels, big or small, that add to the downtown master plan or add to the master plan in general, add to connectivity? Maybe as opposed to, let's just say historically, we either get presented with or we go after large tracts of open space to create fields and parks and trails, but they're not necessarily connected. We try to connect with existing conservation land, and we've always done successfully with that. But are we really, connecting other trails to town, making it more accessible for more people?
Right. Yeah, that would be a good exercise when we're looking at the downtown, deciding what the downtown is, and maybe consider that when we're in master plan meetings with the input from the open space committee. Because next meeting, and I unfortunately won't be there, the idea is to really kind of decide on the boundary of what the downtown will be and what this downtown plan will look at. So if folks on the open space committee want to provide input on, key pieces downtown that can help drive what we think we should be focusing on, that would be helpful. Without taking a deep dive, there's nothing that hops out off the top of my head that I would look at as a open space parcel that we should acquire downtown in terms of connecting, but there's something.
Yeah, and even though the downtown enhancement is our first, we've identified as the first big goal to go after at the implementation committee, but after that, we'll be looking for other things as well. So I just want to keep our radar open for what do we do that could contribute
Yeah,
to those goals. And then, we bring that forward from members through me, through you, Ashley, and, keep enhancing our discussions in that regard. So I will look for that highlighted version that I can't seem to find where I emailed it, just like you, Scott, but I'll find it and get it over.
Yep.
Yeah, I think just refreshing on those goals. We'll probably kick some things loose that they're items that we could be looking ahead for.
Absolutely. Very well. Well, I did not have anything else on my mind to bring up. Does anyone else have any new business?
nope.
No, sir.
How do you feel about the idea of taking a month off and meeting in May without a lot of fresh agenda items? Next month is town meeting. A lot of busyness going on. Pros or cons on that idea?
That would be great. I feel like I'm not going to be around for our next meeting anyway, so that would be good if we didn't have it.
It's kind of stacking up a lot of things for everybody. So given that we're not that busy, that would be my proposal.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
The May
I
Day.
agree.
And so I was starting to ask Scott when the selectmen's meetings are, so we don't conflict. We know you're not meeting on the town meeting day, and so 2 weeks after that is May 9th and then May 23rd. If we made an educated guess at that, Scott.
That's what I would assume, that the 9th and 23rd would be select board.
That being the case, if we stick with a Monday, could we try May 16? Does anybody know of meeting conflicts that day?
None that I know of.
Works for me.
So we'll make that proposal and send it out and be flexible if there are conflicts, but does that sound good?
It does.
All right, so be it. I will mark that down and we'll put it in our minutes. And that's all I got.
All right.
Anyone else? Otherwise, a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Great. All in favor, Scott,
Aye.
Ashley,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Michelle,
I